Well, scared now.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. All right. Welcome, you guys. This is Blaise over here at the Blue Chip Athletic Club podcast, and I'm really excited to welcome Chris Costa to the show to talk a lot about all things, tactical athletics, and what he does kind of with his business there too. Wanted to make sure that we shouted out our partners, First Form, for all of our supplements. We've got Log 10 for the pilot, which is actually rebranding the pilot base. Really excited to continue to partner with those guys as well. Sweet Perfections protein cookies. We'll leave all their stuff in the show notes for you, along with anything that Chris leaves us as well. I want to make sure that we shout those guys out too, so you'll be able to find all the links to his website and social media as well in there. But Chris, welcome. It's kind of funny how we ended up connecting back and forth. But I wanted to talk real quick, like, hey, tell me a little bit more about you, origin story, as far back as you kind of want to go. And then we can kind of get into what you're doing now.
Let's see. Spent 12 years in the Coast Guard, got out and worked for a private security company out of Virginia Beach called Applied Marine Technologies for about 7-ish years. Then started working over at Magpul, started the training division, and then started my own company, Costa Ludas. So mostly firearms training.
Yeah. What'd you do in the Coast Guard?
Yeah. Boatswain, which is pretty much the only rate, right?
There you go, boat driver. My pops is a warrant officer he spent 33 years and 8 months as a boatswain warrant. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, a long time.
I was going to say, I was always a good boatswain mate. I was good and bad, and I'll tell you why. Because the MKs, I did not know anything about anything mechanically, right? So I'd never never be like one of those where, you know what I mean? You know how the MKs would get at the bosuns being like, bro, let me do my job. Like,
yeah,
I'll let you do your job. But then again, I wasn't really helpful when they were like, hey, I need a crescent. I'm like, yeah, which one's that? They're like, come on, man. I'm like, hey, you get the good with the bad here, right?
That's funny.
I'm not going to mess with your job, but yeah, I'll probably bring you the wrong tools. Yeah, and then the odd part was, back then there wasn't an LE rate. You were in the LE side, but like for me, I was at TACLET North, lead at 5 Bravo. So I was there for my normal tour 4 or 5 years. Then was at MLE School for either 4 or 5, somewhere in there, with transfer seasons. And then I was at ITD. I don't know if it's still around for another, I think it 3-ish years, somewhere in there. But I was at a rate the whole time. Like I did not go back to my rate. The only time I think we were driving boats again was down in South America, and when we were doing port security stuff, which was another collateral that was added to us at TACLET because the Olympics were coming in 1996, and a lot of people didn't realize that the Olympics were still going on in Savannah and I think it was Tennessee for kayak racing. Those were other locations that were not popular. On TV, you would see it late at night, like skiff racing off of Tybee Island and blah, blah, blah. And this is who won. And so during that time, it was another ramp up. But then we became a battle roster port security unit. And I believe the reason why was because normally that billet's for reserves. And then it takes like a presidential call up to call up the reserves to say, hey, we need you in this location. And because it was in America, that wasn't going to happen. I think I'm almost going to say 100% because we were, I think, PSU 302. So we were the first active duty port security unit in the Coast Guard, but we're TACLET. So that year of workup between deployments, it was like count your days home, because count your days gone was you were gone all the time,
yeah.
So, but it was a good time. I do miss the days. I don't miss the bureaucracy, like most military people, you don't miss the stupid stuff, but you do miss the tribe,
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you ended up signing up to be a boat driver. And I guess, I'd say probably your time and it's shifted a little bit now. But the BM was a jack of all trades, master of none, doing almost everything. And then they created more rates that go beyond that: GMs, MEs, the BMs.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how a lot of the BMs used to kind of just plug into a lot of that. And then it's now they got more broad, and people are becoming, a little bit more specialized, if you will. But
yeah, I would say, the gunner's mate was very specific. And I almost went gunner's mate, but the problem is it's so specific, like you said, it's very hard to get certain billets. Whereas bosun mate and MK, like you're right, we're the jack of all trades. You can plug us in anywhere and we'll go do it. Now, most people want to go back to regular Coast Guard after that, but for me, we were the ones pushing to where nowadays there's an ME side, right? You have a specific rate for LE, and not a person who's like start and stop it, a person who really wants it. And then not only do they really want it, but they're now able to also, because they're in rank the whole time, they're actually able to make rank based on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas for a lot of us, if you wanted to make rank, you had to go back into the normal Coast Guard.
Right.
And,
go get a flexing qual or go do X, Y, or Z C time to,
Exactly. And for the bosun mates, that, and probably the MKs as well, that was probably more related on being on ships. It wasn't small boat stations. That was a small part of it, but most of it was, if you're going to make rank, you better get on a big ship.
Yeah.
Because that's where the test was built around. So no, it was a good time. I had a lot of good mentors during that time, and I got a lot of experience in a short amount of time because I was trying to volunteer for every deployment that we had. Because I was like one of those guys, when you're in the office sometimes and people are like, "Oh, remember in Panama?" And you're like, "Shit, I wasn't there." Right? So you just wanted a story, right?
Yeah.
Like if you went everywhere, then you get to tell the story.
You got
right?
all the stories, man.
Yeah. So
what had you be like, oh yeah, after 12 years, because you're kind of over the hump at that point, right? There may be some people that are listening to this that are like, oh man, I'm hovering around like 10 years, and they're like, oh, like I can go get this retirement thing or whatever. Was it because you were like, oh, I love this life and I want to stay doing this and I don't want to go back to that, big Coast Guard field, so where you're going back on the ship and back what I'll call in specialty, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I wasn't going to go back into specialty, especially after being at, ITD. I mean, TACLET, we were down in the Caribbean all over the place. We were in the Persian Gulf. We were in the Adriatic. We were boarding with foreigners because the Coast Guard can work during the Clinton time of the house. U.S. forces could only monitor and detect in the Adriatic. So the Coast Guard went over under the Mansfield Amendment because we can go on as technical observers because we have a lot of experience, obviously, in boardings and finding stuff, right? We still get to, use the force, deadly force. We just have no arrest authority, right? So during that time period, you're talking going to a lot of different countries, and from a young guy, because I came in when I was 17, just graduated high school, and then I jumped in. You're not used to being like overseas. You're not even used to traveling or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets you hooked. And then not only that, but like, I love that energy. I love that workflow. And we had a really good team. All of us on our team was board and officer qualified. And at that point, that was pretty unheard of for a team, because usually you had a chief and then you had like an E6, maybe an E5 that was a board and officer. And at TACLET back then, it was pretty much the entire maritime law enforcement manual. You had to memorize it. That's pretty much what it was. It wasn't the same, no offense, but to INCONUS, where you're doing mom and pop style boardings, the ramifications, State Department, there's a lot more that's happening that can be more detrimental. And then I thought I wanted to be a cop. So I took all that TACLET experience and I was like, you know what? It would look good on a resume if I went and taught at our academy. So they created a billet for me there. I had some really good COs. So they kind of knew my passion. So they created a billet. And then I was a use of force instructor for 4 years there and really, really enjoyed it. That was a really good gig. The only issue is you're talking about a time where now you're 4 years dated, and I saw a lot of guys there that were doing, double tours, and some even got extensions. And you're looking at now a group of people where um, you're teaching based on 8 or 10 years ago. So being 4 years dated, and there were guys there that were teaching that were 8 years and some even 10. Um, that's a long time to be away from the Coast Guard and then telling people how it is operationally.
For sure.
And I didn't want to be one of those guys. No offense to them, like we all make our decisions, right? Might have been best for their family and stuff like that. But when guys are starting to have more experience than the teachers, I look at that as an issue. And the only other unit that we had that still did training, which I did like, I did enjoy the training aspect of it, but also still did operations, was ITD. And that was the International Training Division. I don't know if they're still around or if they had a name change, but they merged, I think it was International Training Team. And then it was, I think it was, it started as DIAT, Drug Interdiction Assist Team, many years ago down in the jungles. Then I think it turned into Maritime Enforcement Team or something like that. And then it became ITD. So they were like, hey, we got these two international branches. Let's just merge them together. And the office will kind of be split, but we can use guys for different missions. So then I went to Azerbaijan, Republic of Georgia. Remember during this time, a lot of the assets, military assets, were occupied, and you still have the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, and there was a lot of smuggling going on there. So when we were there, we're working, with the Indige, whatever that country was, to try to get them better. And then I finished up down in South America, and they just, it was probably it. I believe the negative that I'm going to say about the Coast Guard was the Vietnam era guys got out and the risk aversioners got in. And I have nothing against officers. I have a lot of good friends of mine that are officers, and I would tell my son today, try to go be an officer if you can. Right, more money is going to be first. Right, quality of life, things like that, which is very, very important. But the rank is important, right? And there's a lot of power within that rank. But the risk aversioners got in, and I think during that time period, it was kind of like, we want to say we can do this, but we're really not training the guys up to do it properly. And that's when you started seeing guys like Commander Rodriguez, where he started the programs for, I think it was like the SRT, the dog, all those. Now the Coast Guard was going to get, going back to where the SEAL platoons are, maybe even working with Dev to try to get a certain capability, right? But the issue prior to that was the risk aversioners were in, and we lost that hardcore group of Vietnam guys that just didn't give a shit. That was like, this is what we're going to go do. I mean, if you told people that the Coast Guard was blowing up coke labs in South America, most coasties don't even know, right? And the Coast Guard's been around since World War I, World War II. They were obviously in the Persian Gulf and stuff like that. And I think we even had a 110 come under fire, and I think a female captain, I think she got a Bronze Star or something like that, or a few people on the crew. So my thing is that, like, hey, we got a job to do, and we got people that are meat eaters and actually want to go do it. So, like, cut us loose. You know what I mean? The Coast Guard, the positive thing about the Coast Guard is, we do a lot of other people's jobs, right? You go on a bridge of a 110, there'll be two people up there. You go on a bridge of a 170 Navy patrol boat, there's going to be 8 people on that bridge where you can barely move, and there's one person doing one job. Whereas, the BM's up on the bridge of the 110, he's also, navigating, doing the charts, blah, blah, blah. And it might even be, an engineer up there pulling a watch or something. Like, that's just the way we work. So we're really good at doing a lot with not a lot, or nothing, so to speak. So during that time period, the Marines pulled out of, the Riverine Expeditionary Unit pulled out of where we were working, which is probably good. because they were very useful, because you could take as an example, the Marines, which you weren't going to trust the Peruvians, right? Like, you're not going to trust if you go into the mindset of trusting a foreigner, you're gonna get messed up. You're gonna lose guys or get hurt. And I did like that there was a rotation every 3 months. So by the time a guy started, trying to give you that heartbreak family story bullshit, right? And you were gone. And then he had to start it all over with another guy. And then you were gone. And then he had to start it with a new guy. But the Marines could be used as a quick reaction force, which was good. And they could also be doing training in a nearby area ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? So you could already have a group of guys, US guys in there ready to rock and roll. And when they pulled out, it probably was a good idea that we pulled out of that location because our support was gone. But, where else can you grow facial hair and, kind of, you're mostly wearing civilian clothes. You know what I mean? Like, we wore a uniform once in a while. The rest was mostly civvies. So I didn't want to go back to normal Coast Guard. And when they kind of stopped that, those kind of deployments, I was already looking elsewhere. And there was a company that I got in touch with out of Virginia Beach, two former commanding officers of SEAL Team 6 and one of Red Cell. I had applied when I was at MLE School, still teaching, but I was almost on the verge of getting out. And they denied me. I just didn't have enough experience. But luckily, I was able to get hired by them after ITD, because now I had a lot more experience, especially international. So then I became the first Coast Guard guy there, which was cool. But it was a good time, and it was one of those. You're right. It's a hard decision of, do you get out now or do you go back kind of to the regular Coast Guard? And I wasn't going back. I didn't have it in me. And it was okay at that time for me to get out, because the next step was a bigger step, right? Next thing you know, we're working for Homeland Security, doing counterterrorism, teaching people how to do CQB and CBRN environments. I mean, like, as extreme as you possibly can. And then most of the guys that were teaching that curriculum were all dev group guys, and I'm the only coastie. So it was a really good opportunity. And honestly, had it not been for SEAL Team 2 coming to MLE School to get training, then I wouldn't have made a lot of the hookups that I did, because in return, we'd go through their shooting packages for like 60 days. So that's a lot of shooting. Yeah. It's so much shooting that you actually hate shooting. But by about the fourth week, you're like, I hate shooting now.
I'm done.
So
yeah, that's interesting. So after your Coast Guard career, then you were then placed into this other job, and then eventually you decided to leave that and start your own business too. So tell me about that transition. Like, you're doing this job over there in Virginia Beach, and then you're like, oh yeah, like now I'm ready to kind of branch out. And my understanding now is you still do a lot of that same training for the business that you run as well, correct?
Correct. So we did, I think, 3 Super Bowls for Homeland Security. So we go in there and the team would prep the guys. So that was, I think, Detroit, Miami, and Jacksonville. So that job was really awesome. So at the time, I didn't even know that company existed. When I was at MLE School, the warrant officer from SEAL Team 2, he came in, and it was kind of like, why are they coming to, that was like our first question with the command. Like, why are SEALs coming here to go through like some of the use of force, deadly force, some of the structures that we were doing? And the reason why is because they wanted to have the Navy start dropping them and doing boardings on a more regular basis, because a lot of times they were overseas ready for something hostile. So they're sitting on a tarmac in Bahrain or some other location, and they're waiting for an opposed boardings. Boardings didn't work like that. Boardings, 90% of the time, they were compliant until it went non-compliant. And then whatever happened was going to be over very fast before you could even get the SEALs out there. So the idea was now the SEAL team is doing the actual boarding, right? Maybe with a debt as well. So now if it goes south, you literally have SEALs, right? And I thought that was a really good capability. And then within that, excuse me, they returned the favor by saying, hey, anytime guys want to come when we're doing a workup. So then we were getting orders cut to them. And I just, at that point, man, I was in heaven, right? It was like serious characters, like doing a serious job. And I mean, as a Coast Guard guy at the time, we didn't have live fire kill houses. Like we're not running, MP5s and M4s and stuff like that. And going through the structure of training and then to try to bring that back to MLE school and the Coast Guard and say, man, we're so far behind. Like we don't even know, like we don't even know how far behind. And this is after, because Coasties were going to NSG Northwest down in North Carolina. We were working with the Portsmouth TRU unit. So I mean, we were doing as much as we could, but it wasn't so eye-opening until I started going through those workups with SEAL Team 2 and seeing like, wow, we're like our handgun program is so far behind. I hadn't even used, the Coast Guard didn't even have SIM. So here we are doing force on force with one another, and we don't even know this product exists back at our command. And then after that, I went to sim school, and then we started putting it in the program of like we're missing a force on force component. So that helped me get a job later, along with ITD, with AMTI, and then most of what we were doing in the early days was they called it red team. So basically it was red cell stuff, but it was red team. And then we picked up another contract to do the counterterrorism stuff. So it was working with all SWAT teams across America and trying to get them out of the mentality of normal warrants and stuff and guys that give up, and every now and then it might be one bad guy in a room. Like now we're going to hit a room with 5 bad guys with AKs and suicide vests. And it was to the extreme of like, these guys don't know what's happening overseas, but DHS has an ear, and that ear is telling them, we better get our guys in America ramped up. You know what I'm saying? Especially after the theater in Moscow got taken down by terrorists, and then the Bethlehem school siege. Those two were like really pinnacle of like, we got to get regional SWAT teams together all on the same sheet of music. So that's what the next focus was on. Then later, I was working a Navy contract, and I was in the process of trying to make the shooting qual harder because I thought too many people were slipping through, and you're handing them letters to go overseas to go do the job, right? And you're saying, hey, you're good.
You end up doing that job, which sounds like you guys are like on the road, I mean, a ton, and doing a lot of,
yeah, we were,
say, like big DHS missions, joint task force stuff with SWAT teams, where you're kind of getting worked up to be like ready to respond in ways that I feel like is way out of the realm of like what big Coast Guard is doing before that, and then more in the realm of like what you're doing in these international deployment teams and these like other groups. And now you're doing this job, and then what's like the moment where you're like, oh yeah, now I want to go do this on my own. I feel like I'm, one, ready, two, we're like ready to kind of branch out and then do this in this other training capacity through what's now Costa Ludas.
So the company that I was working for, we had a lot of other projects that we would do. So we had like DARPA people there. We had Bill Shepard, the astronaut, ran the skunk works that we had in the building and stuff. We did these like little remote control cars with explosives on them and shit for the guys. So the company did a lot of weird stuff. And at that time period, we got approached by a company that basically now today, I think it's known as the Chris Vector or Super V. It's a little 45 submachine gun. So I was assisting a company in that. That connected me to Magpul, because Magpul did a lot on that particular project, building that gun. I became friends with those guys, And at a certain point, I was kind of getting frustrated because I was trying to make a qual harder for guys going overseas. Like, you're either ready or you're not. And at the same time, the Navy was like, no, we're gonna make it easier. And I'm like, I just can't put my name on that at the end of the day and sign off on it and say you're ready when I know where you're going. So at that point, I did. Um, I helped Magpul do a TV show because they were being requested by what was it? It was about the Magpul Masada, and it was on a show called Future Weapons with Mac. When I was out there, I talked to the owner after the show was over, after we did our little filming thing, and he said, "Man, if you ever want to start something, I'll fund it for you, and we'll see where it goes." So, 4 months of trying to work through the Navy stuff and everything. And then I was like, you know what? I'm out. So I called them up, started their training division. We put out a series of DVDs, myself and a guy named Travis. We put out these DVD series of carbine, handgun, and the popularity just took off, and the training industry just went a complete different direction. Because back then, it had just kind of gotten a little lax, a little sterile, like it does, and we were bringing something different. And then not only that, but the way it was being filmed by filming a class was a different take on it. So it just the training side caught a lot of popularity. And then after about 3 years of being there, then I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do this on my own. I can make more money doing it on my own. I kind of understand the process. I'm a slow learner, but the business world is definitely hard. Because guys, think you're going to make it rich overnight, and it's like slow and steady wins a race. So yeah, it was. It's one of those things, like you'll know the time, right? It'll just kind of happen. Um, it'll get funneled down to where you'll just realize this is what I really need to do, and continuing to do this other thing is not for me. So
yeah, and then you're doing essentially similar work, right? Like, you're doing all this training for very specific demographic of people, whether that's small arms fire or, like, you said carbines as well. And then now, what does your company now do? Like, if I were like somebody who has no idea what Costa Ludas does, like, what are you guys, like, your tagline for, like, hey, this is the product that we promote, and this is how we take somebody from X point to Y?
So we offer a handful of courses, CQB, vehicle work. So that's more counter ambush, 2-man, 4-man. Then carbine work, handgun work, shotgun as well. Shotgun's starting to come back. Weirdly, it kind of is. It disappeared for a while, and then for some reason there's this big push to go back to the shotgun, which is fine. It's a great tool. Not a lot of people know how to run a shotgun well, and even the Coast Guard, after being out, I think I was out. I think it had been about nine years of being out of the Coast Guard. I'm in Jacksonville watching them do their shotgun course, and they're teaching it the same way I was taught when I went through. They're teaching it the same way, I guarantee, when my dad was in, he was taught.
Things move slow.
All
bureaucracy
bladed.
Slow, man.
Yeah, like they're bladed. You're hearing each chink every time they're pumping it. Like, they don't even know, like, on an 870 you can be like it'll sound. It's crazy fast how fast you can run an 870. In fact, I can get faster splits out of my 870 than I can a semi-auto, a Benelli, right? Like, if you know what you're doing. And in a lot of my shotgun courses, we're firing almost 800 rounds in 3 days. Like, that's a lot of ammunition if you don't know how to shoot it, because you're going to get your ass kicked by it. But if you do know how to shoot it, dude, you're going to love it. Like, you're going to love that gun. There's once you aren't getting your butt kicked by it, it's actually I would say one of the funnest guns to run. It's like an old Ford 3 on a tree, or it's old, can't remember. I had a 1979 CJ7, and I think it was a 3-speed on the floor. Like, it's work, but it's like fun work. You know what I mean? It was enjoyable. So that's what we do. We work with military law enforcement and other agencies as well. Some will contract us out. Others are open enrollment courses. And then we just built a range on our property just so I wouldn't have to travel as much. And at the same time, try to provide some level of consistency that is hit or miss as you're traveling to other ranges across America. Some places have steel, some don't. Some have barricades, some don't. So curriculum wise, I can try to keep the curriculum in a manner that I can drive it on my own property because I have barricades, I have steel, we have vehicles here. Whereas in other locations, it becomes a challenge. And look, if you get a target stand with dirt behind it, call it a good day. But then all of a sudden it rains and the paper's peeling off and we don't have steel to shift to. But here in Idaho, that's fine. We'll just start doing barricade work. The day's not over. We still got work to do. We'll just change the way it is. So that's been the main focus lately, is getting our range up and running. And it is, we've already held numerous classes here, and then, trying to bring a better product to the student, right? Which is really important, especially considering that, like when I say, when I brought up the shooting packages, that's a lot. We're doing a lot of shooting, in 60 days. Now that was also CQB and stuff like that as well. But, most of us as teachers, we only have you for a few days. So you're trying to compress what you think is the most valuable thing a student can learn in 3 days. And then you do your quote unquote advanced course. And then what you believe is the next 3 days, when in reality, those are weeks, right? Yeah. Those are weeks. And then of course there's onus on the student, which is like, hey, you got the most important material, now go home and practice it, right? Sure. Don't just sit on it and then a year later show up and then now you still suck because you haven't been doing anything, any work or something. It's like working out over a weekend and wondering why you're not strong or why you're not a good runner a year from now, but you've been doing nothing but eating bonbons and sitting on the couch.
I'm super curious the parallels you see there too. Like, that I'm sure most of the guys that are coming to you or contracting you guys or coming out to your classes are pretty like fit dudes that are healthy, at least to be able to do those things. Like, tell me like, hey, what's a typical demo? And then how important is that? And is it baked into your guys' programming as well to like train the guys in any sort of like a physical capacity before you have them running your specific courses?
No, you don't got to be physically fit to show up. You got to be safe, right? So I guess I'll hit that in a few different manners. If I'm working with a young group of guys, military style guys, chances are, yeah, they're working out in the morning. They're showing up in the morning with their, protein drink, whatever it is, and they're going to be a little bit more hard charging. But then again, a lot of those guys don't have injuries, neck, back, legs, knees, all that other stuff, right? So it's kind of like, in a sense, by the time you go from high school to college, the college guys, they're, especially after a year, you're pretty fit, you're pretty healthy, you got people working on you, keeping you in the game and stuff like that. And it's probably, I would imagine like the first couple of years is probably going to be like the healthiest that you would be as like an athlete, right? Starting to get into being a performance athlete side of the house. On the civilian side, it's a multitude of things. It can be wives trying to get training because, well, you know what? They realize that they haul around precious cargo every day in their little car, right? And their husbands aren't there because their husbands are working. And they're of the mindset of, hey, obviously when my husband's here, he's the protector, but when he's gone, I'm the protector, right? So you have that kind of demographic. You have guys that are young, lean, and yeah, you're back into that same kind of military mindset category, hard charger. You have other guys that are like way overweight. They know they're fat, whatever it is, right? But they're still out here doing what they can from the shooting perspective, from that like worst case perspective. And oddly, it's not my job to tell you, hey man, you need to lose weight. That person already knows it, yeah. Right? They're already in a fight with it. But what happens is through a different direction and a different lens in regards to, hey, we're out here fighting. We're getting up off the ground. This is hard work, right? What if we're shot and injured? Things like that. Then I do a leadership mindset lecture. And usually between those two things, most often I'll see guys come back a year from now and it was like the class was the motivation to make them, like, they start realizing, like, yeah, I am a protector. And I tell civilians, I'm like, look, rescue's an option. It's not mandatory. But if you're military law enforcement, sorry, if you hear gunfire somewhere, that's your job. Go do your job, right? As a civilian, you know, if you're healthy, hey man, if you think you can help people, go do that job, right? If you think you're going to have a heart attack running there, well then do what you can where you're at, maybe to get people out of a spot, or to put them in a better position in case the gunman starts heading your way, right? And maybe you can fortify whatever it is, right? So I'm sure there's something that you can be doing, but what happens is a lot of those guys, they start realizing, like, hey, I am a liability and I don't want to be a liability anymore.
Sure.
And it's kind of like the gun culture and this protective rescue mindset starts to give them a different outlook, and they come back changed, which is awesome, right? We all have our, look, man, we all have our hangups, right? And what we're like working towards, or, you know, what our challenges are. And it's you know, the athleticism definitely, I tell guys now, being 52, I'm like, look, man, like, the more you're working out now, not crazy, but just working out, staying fit, dude, you know, after I forget what age, you know, you're losing 1% of muscle mass every year. So even if I'm working out hard, at the end of the year, I'm still losing 1%, right? So it's harder when you're older. I would be careful with the CrossFit side, because I see a lot of guys that my buddies that are always injured, like they're injured at some point. So, you know, I'm definitely into pushing yourself, not breaking yourself, staying healthy with food and stuff like that and what you're eating, but not breaking yourself, trying to find a happy medium within that performance world for that event that may occur on US soil, where 16 terrorists take over a mall like they did in Mumbai, right? And here it is. We've already had terrorist incidences in the United States. We've already had BLM, Antifa. We've had the normal criminal cartel element as well. So there's plenty of reasons why you need to be training and working hard at it. Like we tell a lot of people, a cop is there to show up and write a report. He ain't rescuing you. Like, unless he's there, he's not rescuing you. And it's not because he doesn't want to, it's just because he ain't there. And when it goes down, it's going down quick. And it's going to be done in a series of a handful of minutes.
Yeah.
Most of the altercations that people are going to face are going to be sub 10 seconds. Sub 10 seconds, it's done, right? So during that time period, I want to be an asset to my family. I don't want to be a liability. And then, you know, because we're in this arena, and I've been in this arena a long time, I just have an issue of some, you know, active killer murdering a bunch of people. So I want to go stop that too. Not trying to be a hero. It's just, it's like good and evil. That's evil. So, like, those of us that have a capability, that's our job. You know, you can't take, you know, 12 years of Coast Guard and then the other side and just uproot that out. Like, that doesn't come out of your DNA. It's in there. You might lay it down for a little bit, but it's still in that DNA. So it's just, I don't want to see, I get tired of seeing all these, you know, active killers, you know, doing what they're doing. And some of them do get stopped by civilians immediately. Some of them do get stopped by law enforcement immediately because they happen to be right there. And I think those are the great stories. And those are the stories that, you know, man, if that can happen to those people, what do I need to do to better myself?
Yeah. It's funny how, like, I think the health realm, as well as your guys's, just have so many parallels, right? It's like when you just embody the fact that you are a healthy person, or you want to live, to move, to train, to X, Y, or Z, whatever, until you're dead, and that mindset kind of becomes your identity. It just becomes much more of a driver. And like you said, you got somebody who comes in, and a year later they pop back into another training course, whether it's a more advanced one or not, and they look totally different, and they move totally different. And it's like, oh, hey, they left, they were impressionable, and they took some of the things that you're saying, and then they coming back a year later, and it's like, okay, I want to make sure that I am ready to respond, ready to act, do, X, Y, or Z. And we see it a lot in health too. It's the same way. It's like, hey, if you're a parent do you want to be the fat parent or do you want to be the shredded parent? And it's like, I feel like that's a really easy delineation to make. It's like, do you want to set the better example? Do you want to set a worse example? And it's the same in your guys's like arena, in that you want to make sure that you're able to put up the best product that you can when it's time to perform. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're training for. You're training for that 10-second split, that 2 minutes when someone's probably, all things considered, probably not going to be there to bail you out, to be able to help out. So it's pretty cool to hear about how you guys have taken, or you've taken this background that you have and then applied it into the business that you run out there in Idaho. Like, tell me a little bit about, hey, we've done this. Do you have like a big staff? Is it mostly you? Like, how do you guys like run like a course, and what is the I guess, who are you guys like trying to help when you're taking that outside of the people that are obviously hiring you, or the mother that's like, oh, hey, I want to be more prepared. What are you trying to take them through, like the journey from A to B?
No, I got a couple good guys that work with me, Jason and Reynolds, prior military guys. And then I work with another guy, Don. We do the long range collaborative courses together. So we'll teach males and females how to get hits out to 1,500 yards. So, and it's crazy, the the only thing that like for us, like I have a gym here, people can use my gym while they're here, especially guys that are hard chargers, it's like, man, really sucks. And I'm in Idaho, and I think the nearest Planet Fitness is 2 hours away. And that's the nearest gym. Like that's too, like, you know what I mean? So it's, out here, law enforcement response time is 22 minutes, in the summer, unless somebody was rolling by, then 40-ish in the wintertime. So like whatever it is you're doing is going to be dealt with, like good or bad, it's going to be dealt with. You were talking about the other thing. I remember, and I can't remember, I think it came from a movie or something like that. It was something like, at the time in which like I can no longer be deadly, then it's like time for me to go, right? Like I want to be an asset. And I think it's that tribal mentality is really important, because it's the tribe that sometimes it's very hard to drive ourselves. You said, hey, pretty easy. Do I want to be the fat guy or the shredded guy? It's a logical question with a very easy answer, but a hard outcome.
Of course.
Because that means that you have to go do it. 100%. And that means you need to know why you're there, because all the whats are coming, and all the whats are waking up in the morning, eating correctly, doing shit that nobody else wants to go do, getting back to the gym later, maybe that night or something, because you're starting off in hard mode. Those are all the things that some people are doing, and that's why they're successful, and other people aren't doing those things, right? But at the end of the day, if you know why you're there, they're just whats. That's all they are. They're just whats. You're putting in the time, you're doing the work because you know why you're there and what you're striving for. And I tell guys, don't make big strives. Don't make big promises to yourself. Just, dude, are you 1% better today than you are yesterday, right? Just do it in small, manageable increments, and over a period of time, you're gonna be surprised at how far down the line you are. Being tribal, sometimes we need others to push us, right? Yeah. That's what a tribe's for. That's what a group of individuals is for. And we know that we'll do more when other people are helping us. It's like if I think I'm going to climb Everest myself, that's not going to happen. I'm going to need a tribe to do it. The Aztecs, the Spaniards conquered the Aztecs and the Incas in 1 year, right? So you're like, damn, these guys are badasses. And then they hit the Apaches and they get their ass kicked, because the Apaches were the idea. They are the idea. They're tribal, not just because they're Apaches. It's a tribal mentality, right? It's like cut off a spider's head, it dies. Cut off a starfish's leg, it grows back. But the piece that you cut off becomes another starfish. You can't kill that idea. right? One is none, two is one. So some people just need some people just need a little bit of motivation and a little help. And that's what good networking is, and a tribe should do, right? All you got to do is beat yesterday's version of you. That's it. Like when my students come here, I'm like, listen, whatever we do today, we need to beat yesterday's version of us. That's it. Like at the end of the day, you can say, I am much better, whether it's as a shooter or like mental on the mental game, on the mindset side of the house. And then, like when a lot of our guys come here, I'm not there to force you into anything, right? We're going to take a journey, and on this journey, there's going to be a lot of self-discovery. Some of that self-discovery is just in the weapon side. Some of it is like your limitations, and some limitations guys have to deal with. They got messed up knees. I had a guy, he showed up to the course. When I first met him, he was 78.
Wow.
Reminded me of Clint Eastwood, big tall guy.
Nice.
Kind of looked like Clint Eastwood. He showed up later with his sons and grandsons. He's 84, just running a gun, just shitting and getting, right. Like, and I'm gonna tell you, if you're within probably 40 yards of him, you're dead. Like it's old school smoke show, right? Getting up off the ground, can he do it? Yeah, but he ain't fast, right? But it's as fast as he can. So when we talked about it, we were like, look, man, the ground's your last option. Try not to go to the ground, right? Try to stand upright, squat if you can, but don't go to the ground. There's just, we got to work with people that have different physical limitations. Military guys that have, articulation problems because they're running a prosthetic leg or something like that. And you got to work with. My way of teaching is a lot different than others. I'm going to show you the way I do something, and I'm going to explain why I do it that particular way. And then I'm also going to show you a few other ways in case that way doesn't work for you, right? Physically, or you're like, no, I don't like that. My job is not to make you like me. And in fact, if you were to leave the gun range and do everything exactly like me, somewhere along the way, I failed you, right? I'm out here to build a better version of you. How do I help you with whatever you got going on, get from point A to point B in the fastest manner and most efficient manner?
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It's interesting how many parallels I feel like exist. And I'm sure in your guys' community as well, you have some people that are pretty hard-headed, or like, I'll say steadfast in a lot of the things that they've like built into their, whether that's weapons training previously or, the mindset that they currently have. How have you been able to like take that with the teaching and instructing that you're doing to then like take a step back and then show people like, hey, there's some other options. We like to say, fitness, health, and wellness. It's almost like a take what you want and leave the rest type of buffet. Like you have all these
it's a Chinese buffet.
Totally. You have all these options.
Yeah.
You can take these things, this one thing. Oh yeah, I really like what Chris said about tactical training, and then I really like what Gabe said about like picking up weights and eating better or whatever. And you get to kind of create your own flavor of ice cream, if you will. Like you essentially get to make that yourself based on taking a little bit from every single person that you're kind of learning from. I'm curious, like how many people are going to your course and they're taking that beginner's mindset. And then if you get somebody who's, kind of, I said, dig their heels into like kind of what they initially think is the only way to operate. How do you then take that person through that same journey to help them be a better version of themselves by either, having a little bit more humility or taking a little bit more of that beginner's mindset approach? Because that's how everybody gets the most out of a training course or kind of anything that you have going on, right?
So one thing that I feel like we don't do enough is give praise. Like when somebody does something well, because you're coming through a class, they're running a drill, and usually they're doing things wrong, and you're trying to help them along the way, right? But one of the things I don't feel like that happens enough is when you give them praise and you're like, hey man, that was a good run you just had. Just try to keep doing that. I know you're fighting it. Just try to keep doing that. Let's go to the extreme, right? I got the ego that's in the class. Usually it's a SWAT guy, right? So I still look at it like this. And I know a lot of other instructors, and I'm not going to say they're wrong for this. Usually they'll give them a few chances, and then after that, they just don't bother with them anymore. But here's my problem with that. Somewhere along the line, when the guy chunked out $800 to come to class, he's coming there for a reason.
Right.
And I can't change him being an asshole, right? Or kind of egotistical, but he did make the first move. And I feel like it's a big move. And now I feel like it's my job to figure out, how do I dissect this? And how do I get into that brain housing group to where I can squeeze a little bit more juice out of them? So usually it starts off with, usually you can find something somebody's doing really good and commend them, right? You're like, that was awesome. That was a really good run, man. Like, keep doing that, right? And then they kind of loosen up a little bit because they just, they just got some praise, right? So I feel like praise is important. Two, I feel like when you're approaching that person and you're like, listen, you're really good at this, you're proficient at it, but I think we can get a little more juice out of the squeeze to shave off a few tenths of a second. I'd really like you to try this. I mean, you're already like crushing it and you're dominating most people here. I need you to be even better than you are right now. Like, if you were going to gunfight yourself later today, like, let's put some edges. Yeah. Let's put some edges, man. Or all it's going to happen is you're just equal to yourself. So let's see if we need a little bit more juice out of the squeeze. And I feel like when you approach that and they give it the good college try, so to speak, I feel like it breaks them down. And then I also feel there's ways that you can use them in the class in a positive manner. Like, hey, I'm going to run this demo with Brad right now. All right. So Brad and I are going to do this demo. I want you to watch us. And then it kind of gives him some stage, right? So he gets a little bit of spotlight. Oh, shit. And then now I feel like the walls come down a little bit where he's more open-minded. Because remember, he was open-minded enough to pay you $800 and get on a plane to come out. So he feels he needs it. He just can't help himself and get out of the way, right? And I just feel like as a teacher, it's still our job and not just be like, screw him, man. He's just an asshole. Well, I can't change somebody from not being an asshole, but what I can do is work with the person to still make them better, right? So at least if that makes sense, that's kind of how we handle it,
right?
When you just get a tough case.
Yeah, they decided that they wanted to put themselves out there and learn something, and they're paying for your product, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're now, as the business owner, you're the guy who's stamping it, and you don't want to do that same thing that happened where you're like, hey, you're lowering your standard of the product that you're putting out by saying like, hey, somebody on day one and somebody on day 3 or 6 or whatever is leaving, and they're better than they were on day one. And you're giving them some tools and ways that they can kind of continually improve on their own. So then hopefully see them in a year and have them be coming back to do something interesting. Do you guys have a lot of people that they'll finish one, call it entry level training program with you guys, and then they come back for something more advanced later on? How's your retention?
Yeah, most people at some point round robin the entire courses. They'll come in, do handgun, they'll do handgun 2, they'll do the carbine, they'll do carbine 2, then they'll do vehicle somewhere in there. Vehicle's very important. We spend a lot of time in vehicles, law enforcement, 83% of their gunfights are what they call officer initiated, which means the officer sees something weird and then he initiates contact, whether rolling a guy or not. And then it turns into a gunfight, right? The other portion of that percentage is dispatch sends you somewhere, your house, domestic, and then it turns violent. 64% of those gunfights for cops are in and around vehicles. And then 70% of those are at night. And then 80% of the cops are shot and injured. So that pretty much tells you your gunfight's going to happen around a vehicle. It's going to happen at night. And I might even be shot and injured, right? So civilians spend a lot of time in their vehicles. Civilians don't pull people over to increase their chances of gunfighting, but there's definitely, you see a lot of road rage out there. You've seen what happens when people block the roads. You see people when the riot stuff happens, beating car windows and trying to rip people out of cars. It's already happened, right? So it's not like I'm making up this fictitious thing. Sure. And when you're doing that, if you can't get away in your vehicle and you're stuck where you're at, then it's gonna go to a higher extreme. Having a gun inside a car you would think is a good thing having dudes with guns inside a car you think is a better thing until nobody knows what the hell to do inside that car. And then it's a compressed environment with firearms, and all of a sudden you're more likely to hurt yourselves than you are anybody else. And we do 2-man pistol, 4-man pistol, 2-man rifle, 4-man rifle. So knowing how to run a rifle in a car is very important. And I'd rather run the most violent thing I possibly can with the biggest mag capacity I possibly can. So for us, yeah, people come to the courses, and usually most of the time every year I'll see our students again at some point, right? Because you can go to my rifle course, somebody else's rifle course. They're going to be similar in nature. Like, you can only reinvent this shit so much, right? So what I believe people ultimately start coming back for, if you want to keep them, right? If you want to keep that client, is, are they getting better? And how are you taking care or facilitating that care, right? You can have a great resume, and if you're an asshole, they ain't coming back. Yeah. They're not going to pay to get treated like that, right? They're not getting paid to be treated like it's they're at boot camp, right? That and they're getting yelled at. That's not, a lot of these people that pay this money, they're very successful people. Some own their own businesses and stuff. And I can get away out here talking to them in a different manner, but you can't treat them like shit. And they got to know that in good faith, you have their best interest at heart, right? They got to know, like, hey, he's going to be pushing me, and I'm not going to like it because it's going to get uncomfortable. But again, he has my best interest here, right? And so we get most of those clients back, and then they, do that rotation, and we get like a third of new clients that kind of come into the mix, and then, and then they start that again. Then they start that process, and most of the clients, even if they've taken, some of the classes, they then know what to expect. So they'll come back once a year for a tune-up on handgun or on rifle or something,
That's cool. Yeah, it's awesome that you get to probably see then somebody progress from day one through course one all the way in through the end of a vehicle course. And in full disclosure, for me, I've never even heard of people running a course where they'll teach you how to defend yourself with or without weapons from a vehicle. I think that's like super, super interesting that a program like that exists and that you guys run that. And it's something that I didn't even think about. It's like, oh my gosh, like if somebody's coming up and banging on the window, like what are your options, and what would you actually do? And I'm sure you guys like talk through scenarios driven and ways that you can kind of make sure that you're the most prepared for that, because as you know, from Coast Guard career, from a law enforcement career, like you fall back on the training that you have. And if you have no training, your stress reaction is going to send you to, fight, flight, flee. Sometimes people, even that fawn is now a thing where people will almost like give themselves.
Yeah, you have, well, people forget you have, because we always use the term fight or flight, right? Flight's not bad if it's to put you into a better position, right? What we don't want to do is we don't want to submit, right? We don't want to find ourselves where we're submitting, right? So, but the other one is posture, right? So sometimes my posture sends a very big signal to people, like, man, I think that dude just put a line in the road right there, and if I step across it, I'm gonna be playing in hard mode, right? And that's just your body posture, right? That language that you're giving off, that male lion type of mentality. The vehicle stuff, it's anytime we can get away with our vehicle, awesome. But sometimes, as much as I've got a truck and I can jump curbs and shit to get out of a bad situation, sometimes we rent cars because we're traveling, and I'm renting the cheapest thing possible, and a curb's gonna, high center me, and I'm not gonna get out of there, right? And then, what to do, when to go to weapons, when not to, right? So it's like, yes, a 115 grain 9mm round can solve a problem, but a 23 million grain car can solve a lot of problems very fast, right? So, the car, there's a time and place where we need to try to get away, and when we can't, then we need to start getting back on our feet, and we need to get out of a compressed environment that puts me in a vulnerable position, and know how to fight around it and how to use it, not based on opinion, but based on data of where on the car is the safest spot to be that'll absorb the most amount of rounds. And typically we see that with, obviously, engine block and pillars, A pillar to A pillar, B to A, C to D. And there's a lot of structural things within that vehicle to save your life in the event you get T-boned or the event that you do a head-on. That car is designed to save you in a certain manner and absorb energy, and energy out of a bullet is still energy, whether it's a dump truck or whether it's a 115 grain 9mm round. So when people start to see that, or when we do the ballistic demos on the car, they're like, holy cow, I can't believe my car can take that much fire. And it's like, if it's all you got right now, it's all you have. If if uh, if there's something better, then get to that better spot. If I can get behind a dump truck, a brick wall, a building, whatever it is, sure, get there, right? Always keep looking for that, improving position as much as you can. So yeah, the vehicle courses, they definitely people love them because there's a different energy about it, but they start taking it real serious. The hard part with vehicle stuff is when you start to introduce kids, because now, like, do I separate myself from the vehicle that's about to take fire because my kids are stuck in it, and all the rounds that start going through the front windshield start getting sucked towards the middle and start deviating down, which can hit my kids in the back seat. So if I'm starting to do things around the car, I'm either getting mobile and getting away, or I'm having to get my kids out of the car to get them to a safer location, because the car's not going to be able to perform from one side, right? I need both sides of the car to get the most amount of performance. So if my kid's in between me and the assailant, I've got issues, right? I can't put him between me and the bad guy. So there's the children's side of the house is a lot more complex on that. So, but they're good courses. Nowadays it's like, look, man, I don't have a Secret Service detail walking around with me and my family. I am the detail, right? I am the special agent in charge of my own detail. I am my own quick reaction force, right? Nobody's coming to save me. I don't go to QRF, right? I am the QRF. And that's how people need to start thinking about it nowadays, which is, look, like you kind of said, when it goes south, I don't want to write the how to do it manual while I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want the first time to test it out to be live, if you will. Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting about this stuff. I feel like we could go on for hours, but like I said, give the people an opportunity. Like, what's your, I guess, Instagram handle or website? What's the best way that people can reach out to you if they're like really interested in coming out? You said up in Idaho to take a course out with you guys, and what does it kind of look like for them?
The website's www.costaludas.com, Ludus. Then Instagram, I think it's Costa_Ludas, and then on Facebook, it's Chris Costa. It'll have our Trident net and shield logo. So tried to keep something from the Coast Guard days. My dad was Coast Guard. My uncle was Coast Guard in Vietnam. My wife was Coast Guard, and her father was Marine. Her brother's Navy. My grandfather was in World War II. He was in the Navy. So you know how in the Coast Guard we have like tridents and seahorses and shit like that. So then Ludus is Latin for training. We don't really go out and kind of say it, but the net and shield came from the Rotarius, which were a type of gladiators that were like down by the sea. So they would have a trident, net, and shield when they fought. And then the school that they went to was Ludi. So that was the school that they would go to train. That was the school, and then the training was the Ludus. So it's basically Costa training is what it turns out to be. And then that's how we kind of got our logo and stuff like that. So I just wanted to bring that maritime background in. In the beginning years, everybody was like, what does he think? He's a Navy SEAL? It's like, that's the furthest from the Budweiser that you can possibly get. Eagle, Globe, Anchor, and Trident. Like they in a musket. Like they got a lot going on that Budweiser. I'm like, we're and I'm like, and I'm in a maritime background, bro. Like all of our pins had tridents and seahorses and shit. At least the ones I had. I remember our port security pin. I think it was 2 seahorses. Why seahorses? I don't know. But yeah, you just like, you start looking at all of our pins, and I'm like, hey, we're in a maritime. You're not the only maritime guys out there.
That's right. So, there's your Latin lesson for the day too. Riddle me that.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Again, everybody, you'll be able to see all of his stuff down there in the show notes from the episode too. If you want to go up and take a sweet vehicle course to learn how to defend yourself there, or any of those other rifle, small arms courses, definitely hit him up and let him know. And I got a good reference point from him, actually being able to go deploy with his son. I don't even think we talked about how we ended up getting connected, and the fact that I serve currently with Chris's son over in the Tampa area. So super cool to come
Yeah. That's
have a
awesome.
full circle, and obviously be able to spend some time with him and then meet you too. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you guys. Just remember, you don't stop playing as you get old. You get old because you stop playing. We'll see you next time.